Hey everyone, the Galaxy S10 Lite is Samsung's newest addition to their S10 lineup. It's also their last because the S20 series was just announced. Now, this is a very interesting phone and it competes with phones like the OnePlus 7T and the Mi Note 10. The biggest question, can it even compete with Samsung's very own Galaxy S10 Plus? I'm Angie for GSM Arena and this is our review of the Samsung Galaxy S10 Lite. The S10 Lite looks elegant and subtle. There's a small centered hole punch like on the S20 phones. Similarly, there's also a wider camera bump on the back and no headphone jack to speak of. Unlike Samsung's flagships, however, there's no IP-rated protection and the phone isn't made of glass. Instead, the back is made of a material Samsung calls Glastic. This means the S10 Lite is just as slippery as a regular glass phone and collects just as many fingerprints, but it's surprisingly light despite its size. In fact, the phone is so large that one-handed use is quite difficult even with the multiple gesture navigation options that the UI offers. And man, does it offer a lot. There's the Android 10 gestures, the Samsung gestures, and the classic navigation buttons. You can also adjust the back gesture sensitivity. The S10 Lite has an optical fingerprint reader that appears to be faster and more accurate than the ultrasonic fingerprint reader on the regular S10. If you get rid of the unlock animation through the developer options, the perceived speed gets even faster. The 6.7-inch AMOLED has a full HD resolution and supports HDR10+ content. It's actually a larger screen than the S10 Plus's, and it's almost as large as the one on the Note 10 Plus, which is definitely one of the phone's biggest selling points. It's not the sharpest screen out there with an unimpressive pixel density of 394 ppi, but other than that, this display is excellent. Sunlight legibility is great and it got up to 700 nits of brightness in max auto mode. The screen also had impressive color accuracy in natural mode, but vivid is the more pleasing setup. Speaking of the other side of video consumption, wired audio using a Samsung adapter dongle was nicely loud and scored high marks in our tests. Thankfully and surprisingly, it turned out that the phone supports LDAC, which is superior to the generic SBC Bluetooth audio codec. As manufacturers push wireless audio more and more, it's important to include hi-fi audio codecs like this one. Where Samsung hasn't skimped is the phone's massive 4,500 mAh battery. No matter how you use your phone, it's bound to last a while as it scored an excellent 110 hours in our endurance tests. The 25-watt charger in the box allowed for some speedy charging. You can get from 0 to 63% in half an hour, and it takes 62 minutes for a full charge, which is quite respectable. Despite light in the name, the phone has a Snapdragon 855 chipset and it's plenty fast, at the level of the S10 or the Note 10. The S10 Lite has Android 10 with the horrible named One UI 2 on top. It has a crazy amount of customization options, allows for the navigation screens to be lowered for easier reachability, and has a Bixby shelf if you swipe to the left on the home screen. Basically, it's not too different from the first edition, and most changes seem to be under the hood. For example, the UI now asks for permission to use your location for each app. There's also a system-wide dark mode that helps save battery life and extends the darkness even to third-party applications. The S10 Lite has a triple camera setup. There's a 5-megapixel macro camera, a 12-megapixel ultrawide, and the star of the show is a 48-megapixel main camera that has super steady OIS. It would have been nice for Samsung to include a telephoto camera instead of a macro cam, but at least the macro cam seems to work quite well. In daylight, the main camera has punchy colors and good dynamic range. However, there are occasional sharpening halos and edge-to-edge sharpness varies. For some reason, the lower left corner of the scene would often turn out soft. The ultrawide camera offered similar rendition to the main cam and had the same punchy colors and dynamic range. It was softer than the main camera, but that's common with ultrawide cameras. In low light, color saturation varied from scene to scene and overall looked a bit soft. On the positive side, HDR engaged in almost all of the night scenes and highlights and shadows were generally well developed. Night mode isn't doing a lot though, and we found it to be too conservative. While it restored more detail in the shadows, it didn't seem to help with highlights and light sources. It also added a lot of grain. In short, the standard HDR mode performed more than good enough so you don't have to wait on night mode's image stacking for good photos, at least for the main camera. With the ultrawide camera, however, night mode photos look universally better. Photos are still generally soft and there is still added noise, but the extra sharpness and tonal restoration really made a difference. The macro camera on the S10 Lite is one of the better ones we've seen and it delivered impressive detail, even for a 5-megapixel sensor. portraits look sharp and have natural skin tones. They also have nice edge separation, and the faux bokeh was nice, even with more complicated backgrounds. The S10 Lite can record 4K footage up to 60 FPS. 4K videos have very good levels of detail, no noise, and lively colors. There's video stabilization, and while it works well, we didn't notice anything to back up Samsung's claims that this system is special. Full HD video doesn't have as much detail and sharpness, but other than that, it has pretty similar rendition to the 4K footage. 4K video with the ultra-wide camera also looked really good. Sharpness and detail were impressive and were comparable to the main camera. The special Super Steady mode, which we've seen on other Samsung phones since last year, is here as well, and it works nicely. It works by cropping in on footage shot by the ultra-wide camera, so the video quality is a little bit behind the main cameras. The S10 Lite is an excellent phone, and checks all the boxes for a flagship device, so much so that the Lite moniker seems a little bit out of place. It can even stand up to the S10 Plus with the larger screen, the longer battery life, faster charging, and better under-display fingerprint reader. The S10 Plus will get you a better camera experience and IP protection, but that's still an amazing showing from the Lite phone. However, the S10 Lite is competing with phones that have high refresh rate OLED screens and flagship chipsets that are being sold for less. So while this phone is really good, the competition is just too strong, and the price tag at 650 euros is too high. So perhaps wait a few months for the price to drop and for the dust to settle, and then pick this one up. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button down below, subscribe at the bell icon, and I'll see you guys next time.